Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business. So we talk a lot in this on this program about public relations, but my next guest, this is a real treat. I'm thrilled to be joined by Chip Massey, who is the founder of The Convincing Company. Yes, that's the name of the organization. You'll understand why in just a moment. Chip is an ex-FBI hostage negotiator and special agent for 22 years, and he was involved in some of the investigations around the 9/11 terror attacks and led the New York's FBI office's crisis negotiation teams in all 5 boroughs. He's the co-owner, as I mentioned, of The Convincing Company, where he and his partner and co-author of Convince Me, Adele Gambardella, I've been practicing that, they've written Convince Me, high-stakes negotiation tactics to get results in any business situation. I know that's relevant for all of our listeners. So Chip Massey, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you so much, Shalom. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Chip, what an interesting background. So if I were to tell you, 25 years ago that you'd be on a small business radio program talking about how negotiation in your federal life would lead to small business, what would you say?
I would say, what? Because I didn't catch it at all either. I've always been interested in business, but it wasn't until I got out of the bureau that things kind of fell into place.
Yeah, well, thank you for your service, and what an impressive background. And so
yours as well, Shalom, should we say. Yes, thank you for your service.
No, thank you. So give us the behind the scenes. What led you into this path in partnership with your very, very accomplished partner who, again, has been involved in PR campaigns for President Biden and for many large companies. How does the federal background and the business background and the political background all sort of come together?
Right. That's a great question. And the short answer of that is that I met Adele at an entrepreneurial dinner. And it was one of those deals where, you kind of go around a table and you introduce yourself and what you do. And I heard Adele's background, investigative reporting. She worked at George Magazine. That was JF Kennedy Jr.'s magazine. And she was a PR specialist that worked on Madison Avenue with companies like Ogilvy and so forth. And then she opened up her own shop and she worked PR and crisis comms there. And she decided that, it was no longer she wanted to have a large kind of staff under her. She wanted to change up. So I met her at that juncture. And so we started talking and she goes, I think we have some good overlap here. Let's continue talking. This was August 5 years ago, by the way, Shalom. And as we're talking, she's asking me different questions about what I learned as a hostage negotiator, what I learned at Quantico and how I applied in the field and what kind of techniques and strategies, all the things that a good reporter would do. And then at some point she goes, okay, I think we got enough. I said, enough for what? She goes, oh, we're going to put on a masterclass. I said, okay, right. And she goes, we're going to hold it in New York City. And that's where I am. I'm like, okay. And she goes, we're going to do it in 3 months. I'm like, okay, wait. Because you
were convincing, Chip.
That's it, right? She absolutely was. And she has that kind of business mind and acumen. She just flies. So, but from me, from a government background, Shalom, I was like, wait, we got to do some studies. We got to do some interviewing. We got to, this and that, the other thing. She goes, no, we're going. And we did it, and it sold out. And then we did it again in DC, same thing. And then COVID hit. And then she goes, you know what we're going to do? We're going to write a book. And I'm like, okay, sure. And yes, so McGraw-Hill published it, and it's called Convince Me.
Convince Me, high stakes negotiation tactics to get results in any business situation. And Chip, that's where I want to go in the conversation. Chip, I hope many of the parents tuning into this program won't be offended, but your kids have some of the most convincing and nagging kinds of approaches, but they work. You've talked about this before, and I want to go there. How can you take some of the convincing skills that we've all learned in our childhood, and how can it serve us well in business?
Oh, yeah, right. And it's so true, because what we found out in our studies when we were researching this is that most of us don't graduate beyond convincing strategies that we've learned when we were 6. So it's like, the whole kind of candy trading game. We still have that in effect. And what worked for us then we still apply now, even if it fails. So what we teach is that this whole idea of there's better ways, guys, than just relying on the past, that we can give you new tools, new ways of looking at. So one of the things that we discuss in the book, Shalom, is the idea of the unstated narrative. And so really what we teach is getting to know that other person in such an in-depth way that they feel that you become that trusted advisor, that person that they're going to reach out to, even if it doesn't pertain to what you're representing, what you're selling, what your company is about. But they're just going to use you as kind of a sounding board. So that's the kind of relationship that we teach on how executives can, gain trust, help their sales teams, how to have high operational, high functional teams as well. And how do you become a convincing leader? So the unstated narrative is simply this. The unstated narrative is the disconnect between what somebody believes about you, but would never say to your face. So we teach is that you've got to get close. There are ways that you can get close to understanding what that person actually believes about you, your product, your service, and what they're not going to tell you. And if you can do that, Shalom, that's what we say is the kind of epitome of all of this, is that if you get close to who that person really is, who they want to be seen as, the kind of character they want to present to the world, you're going to have a huge advantage. And we have specific techniques to get there.
Well, we've only just scratched the surface, and I'm going to continue my conversation with Chip Massey, who has co-authored this fantastic read, Convince Me High-Stakes Negotiation Tactics to Get Results in Any Business Situation, and he is the co-founder of The Convincing Company. We will be right back and get down to business. Hey, we're back, and I'm thrilled to continue my conversation with Chip Massey, a former FBI special agent who has a wealth of experience in high-stakes criminal cases and negotiation techniques. But we're not going to talk about the criminal. We are chatting about his work as the co-founder of The Convincing Company. And Chip, one of the things that every small business owner and entrepreneur tuning into this program has to do each and every day is make a first impression. You mentioned you met your co-founder Adele at a business dinner. She made an impression on you. You made an impression on her. How does that work? What advice would you share with our listeners?
Oh, great question. And we have a very simple, straightforward process for that. We call it forensic listening. And the idea here is that it's the analysis and study of a conversation after it's happened, because we believe words leave clues. And if you think about it, Shalom, the kind of people that we gravitate to are the people that take an interest in us, are the people that kind of like put down their phones and just focus in and start asking us questions and leaning in a way that shows they are truly engaged here. They are, and they're asking some good questions, and they seem earnestly interested in who and what I am. And that's really, if you think about it, it's so true in human nature. And if you want to be that kind of convincing person, we suggest that you analyze a conversation from 4 respects. And the first is body positioning. So we say, watch how their body is moving. We differentiate this a little bit from body language because we're all creatures of movement in our world and how we interact with each other. So if you're paying attention to how a person is moving, where they're animated, where is their energy going down, where they seem to be less volatile, or where are they leaning in, make note of that. The other is the theme development. What are the themes, the ideas, the kind of concepts that they go back to? Because we've heard it said, if they repeat it more than once, it's important to them. And if it's important to them, it better be important to you. The next is their voice, their pitch, tone, and cadence of their voice. And we can get a lot from that, right? When somebody's excited, they tend to go up in rapidity. And when somebody is not as engaged, they're going to go down, and it's not, plateaued. The other is the emotion. What emotion is around their ideas? What emotion is it when you see them recognizing and hearing your ideas? Make note of all these things. And what we say is that you bring all those 4 concepts together, and then you write down the kind of elements that were there, the ideas presented, the emotions that were there, the voice, all those things. And then you go back to them Like say this was a first client meeting, maybe it's a new leader, whatever it is, you go back to them a week later and you say something like, I was thinking about our past conversation, which right off sets you apart from 90% of everybody else around them. And then you say, as a result of that conversation, I just had a couple follow-up questions, but I wanted to tell you that it made an impact on me. And I know we were there to talk about, my product and what I could do for you. But I got to say, when I saw how committed you were to developing client relationships and the kind of things, the tips you shared with me, I went back to my team and I shared those things with them. And we've been instituting it ever since. And it's made a big impact. So I wanted to say thank you. Now, imagine that, right, Shalom, is that we call that targeted validation. That is hitting that person and then they see you as, wow, they really took an interest in me and wanted to learn more.
Chip, this is amazing stuff. And I know from your expertise at the FBI, you've now brought many of those same techniques through the Convincing Company into your book. And it's entitled Convince Me, High Stakes Negotiations Tactics to Get Results in Any Business Situation. You're applying it at large companies, but also small companies like many of our listeners. Chip, how can we find the book and how can we get in touch with you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's available, in Amazon and wherever books are sold. Also, you can go to our website, trainingsogood.com, which talks about our immersive training and other things that we do.
Fantastic. Jim Massey, thank you so much for joining us. That's a wrap for us here on Get Down to Business. We'll be back next Sunday to success. Let's get down to business.